Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, selepas kita bercuti panjang selama sebulan lebih daripada sesi weekly booster ni, Alhamdulillah after raya ni kita come back balik dengan satu topik yang walaupun ramai tanya kenapa tak buat topik Palestin, tapi saya rasa dalam keadaan kita COVID di Malaysia, it is not bad also to also discuss pasal inequality issue because this is the current issue lah currently. So with us today we have a very special guest which is Dr. Fatimah Al Attas, an assistant professor from International Islamic University Malaysia, and she's one of the sociologists lah kalau nak kira. Dan kalau siapa yang pernah tengok sebelum raya hari tu ataupun sebelum puasa, ada satu sesi dengan CIS Code yang berkenaan dengan kemiskinan hate, dan Dr. Fatimah merupakan one of the person who's actually talking and bring up this issue in Malaysia. So this is a very important topic also, but for today kita tak cerita tentang kemiskinan hate, kita akan bercerita tentang buku iaitu This is what Inequality looks like yang ditulis oleh Dr. Teo. So without further ado, that's the book. Ya, ada tag-tag lagi.
Ada banyak.
Tapi buku ni sangat menarik dan saya memang cadangkanlah untuk pembaca ataupun siapa-siapa yang melihat menonton sesi hari ini untuk membelinya. Okey. Tapi buku ni sangat menarik dan saya memang cadangkanlah untuk pembaca ataupun siapa-siapa yang melihat menonton sesi hari ini untuk membelinya. Okey, sekejap. Tapi buku ni sangat menarik dan saya memang cadangkanlah untuk pembaca ataupun siapa-siapa. Okay, sorry, ada voice dekat satu lagi sebab tu buka Facebook. Okay, sorry ya. Okay, now kita go to the main topic. Dr. Fatimah, nak panggil apa? Dr. Fatimah je lah. Dr. Fatimah mungkin boleh terangkan sikit siapakah penulis buku ini dan apakah motivasi beliau untuk menulis buku ni. Sebab saya kira saya sendiri sebenarnya agak terkejut lah bila macam ada inequality issue in Singapore, sebab biasa baca yang US kan ataupun UK punya issue, and suddenly pasal Singapore, so it's quite interesting. Please Dr.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. Tak tahu apa, whoever is watching, thank you for sparing your time on Sunday night to hang out with us and chit chat pasal buku. Thank you for inviting me first. I really love this book. Okay, I think it's really hard to find a book that I really like, betul-betul really like and can feel really connected to as a reader and also as a sociologist. So I definitely recommend lah sama-sama buku ni. Dr. Teo is a sociologist teaching at NUS, dekat National University of Singapore, and like you said tadi lah, for a really highly developed country like Singapore with the highest orang kata in terms of development, in terms of people's income kan, it's hard to understand ada issues of poverty ataupun issues of inequality. So Dr. Teo memang buat research on this, okay, and the book is based off her ethnographic research lah. So in the book she explains in a very easy to understand way, which I think is one of the really is the strength of her book lah. Her ability to explain dia punya research. So it's based on research about contemporary issues and trying to shed an alternative punya perspective ataupun to disrupt the current narrative about issues relating to inequality, issues relating to poverty. So I think that is the main drive, because as an academic, most of the time we are driven to write for the academic world. So yeah, we will write academic journals for publication, and that's part of the KPI. And then if we do write books, usually it's academic books. Rarely it's for public consumption because you need time, and that itself is a privilege to have the space and time to write for a general audience. So she had, and she acknowledges that lah in the book. So she said she had that opportunity to do it, and so she took it. But it is very scary juga, very daunting juga for an academic to write for the public, because you put yourself in a very vulnerable position lah. And people pun in the academic world pun will question you like, why do you spend your time doing this kan, when you can actually publish in journals, dapat higher ranking, and then it adds to your CV lah kiranya for academic world. So what she's trying to do actually in this book is to differentiate between issues of poverty and issues of inequality. And I think because of dia punya research tu ethnographic, maksudnya like ethnographic research ni kita go to the field. So bukan kita tak tengok data statistics, kita maybe tak run survey, but we immerse ourselves in the space lah. Maksudnya we go down to the field. So what she does is she spent many years going to the field, and she explains it in the book how she does her ethnography so that people outside of sociology boleh tahu what is ethnography, what does it look like, macam mana you collect data, because I think people yang outside of sociology ataupun anthropology mungkin tak berapa familiar with this data collection method lah. Selalunya kan macam people mungkin tengok statistics ataupun tengok data, baca other articles and things like that. So for people in our field, kita banyak macam turun padang, and that's how we collect data. So what she does is she goes to HDB flats. So HDB flats ni macam PPR lah, but in Singapore lah, somewhat a version of the PPR in Singapore. So she collects data through that way, and through that she realizes the importance of showing people the difference between poverty dengan inequality. And I think that's what she's trying to do lah, to demonstrate that bila kita cakap pasal poverty, it's very easy for us to focus on the individual. Kan, macam kenapa orang ni miskin ataupun ni salah dia. Contohnya kita put the responsibility on the individual rather than understanding something yang lebih systemic, something yang lebih structural. So but when we talk about inequality, we are talking about a comparison. So but it is always in relation to something. It doesn't stand on its own. Macam tu lah. Bila kita cakap pasal poverty, it's easy for us to make it about that alone. Tapi bila kita cakap pasal inequality, we always have to acknowledge that everything exists within a system. So that if there is inequality in relation to what? So we bring more realities into the picture lah. So we understand that there is structure, there are other people involved. So when we talk about inequality, we're not just talking about the poor. We're also talking about the wealthy. We're also talking about the system that macam continues to perpetuate certain things. And I think what makes the book really interesting is that she tells the stories. So the book ni is a series of essays actually. So you can actually read the introduction, macam tu her preface, and then you boleh baca the chapters individually. So dia macam break down the
I just nak tambah tadi, macam kalau you baca chapter, so you doesn't need to follow the sequence pun, kan?
Betul. I can read the macam chapter titles. Like the first one I think is the introduction lah, disrupt the narrative. So for the first chapter ni, it really drives it really opens your eyes lah to consider what you know and to reconsider. And I think I want to highlight satu quotation daripada book nanti later. So the second chapter is everyday lives, just talking about the everyday lives of people duduk dekat HDB, sebab dia punya research ni centered on the HDB flats ni lah dekat PPR, contoh like PPR area. And then work-life balance should not be class privilege. This one dia ceritakan tentang the work-life balance of the people, how mothers manage work, macam tu, like you know the privilege of having a maid contohnya, or somebody to send your kids to while you work. If your kids are really small, and I think with the pandemic ni, moms can really relate to this lah. If you have small kids, you realize how much attention and intensive care requires to manage children. So if you have to do work and that's you know, you understand lah the balance of trying to do that. And then the next one is I want my children to be better than me. This talks about macam the next generation ataupun the wish of or the dream for the next generation. So most parents akan ada that feeling of we want our children to be better than us. So we do a lot of things to do that. But what is the difference? So in relation of contohnya what does it look like for people who are poor and for people who are wealthier, kan? Macam is the aspiration sama ke, different ke? How do they see being parents, having children? So that's very interesting. And then growing up without class protection. I think a lot of these lah really have stories that will really touch you lah. Differentiated deservedness. How kita rasa macam some people are deserving of something because of their class, and I think this is another chapter yang I rasa will really challenge how we think about certain things. Contohnya, I think one of the narratives yang earlier masa awal-awal PKP in the context of Malaysia was like, kalau dia ada astro, macam they don't deserve to receive certain types of help. Contohnya kan, things like that lah. And then needs, wants and dignity. Also very interesting topic pasal what people want. Do they deserve to want that because they are poor, contohnya kan? And then dignity is like clean air, airing dirty laundry, a memo on race. This is very interesting when she wrote about a memo on race ni. She talked about actually how much she didn't want to talk about race. But like Malaysia, Singapore is a multi-cultural, multi-ethnic society. So it's hard to talk about inequality without bringing in race. And she acknowledges that race is important, but because she cannot, her research did not focus on that. There's a lot more to do. She didn't actually want to comment on that. But at the request of her editor, she wrote it. So I read, the other thing I like is the honest in her writing. And you get to get snippets of the process of her writing the book in the book lah. And then the last chapter, I would think is the last chapter, is actually now what can we do about it. So she gives some macam comments about what can be done after that lah. And then she explains her methodology and what happens. This is actually the second print, so dah ada a new some new additions to it. The one that I have lah, this is like the new one. So I think the main motivation is actually to open up people's eyes about talking about poverty from the perspective of inequality. Tadi ada satu quotation I wanted to share, wrote it down, which I thought was really interesting. Sebab tadi we were having a chat pre this session kan, about how where we come from really addresses how we see something. And she says this, the way we frame our questions shapes the way we see solutions. So if we see the problem of poverty as a problem of poor people not making the right decision, not having motivation, dia malas contohnya, ataupun dia yang put themselves into the problem, ataupun however we may see it from our own fields of expertise, that is how we will come up with the solution. So so she said, the other thing that she said is very humbling juga, is no matter what it is that we know, regardless of the empirical truth, maksudnya it is not to disregard that other research have been done, that there are other empirical facts out there yang memang other people with their expertise have done, we still will have blind spots. Maksudnya we will always have blind spots yang mana we have not considered. So I think what she's trying to bring is more than anything lah. I think the book is about being human, is understanding people's experience. So she tells a lot of stories for us to see a more experiential punya perspective of inequality, rather than just tengok numbers, rather than nak tahu what is the poverty line, how many people are affected by this poverty line. She talks about the everyday life of people and how poverty affects them. And that is what inequality is. It's about our social reality. It's everything. It's everything that we do. It's everything that we think. It's everything that we feel. Because that is something that we have been brought up in. So the context to shapes who we are. But it's not to say that kita tak ada agency, that kita tak ada ability to change the course of our life. But it is also to acknowledge that it's not just about one person. It's not just about the individual. Okay, banyak sangat dah cakap.
Adalah, tapi betul lah tu, because you already cover. Sebenarnya nak tahu macam kenapa dia nak bezakan inequality dengan poverty kan, but you have just now. And satu benda yang I rasa one that I caught just now is bila kita contohnya yang pasal bantuan masa awal-awal PKP, kalau ada astro then they don't deserve to get the bantuan. This is something yang macam I think when I went to PPR back then, I also have this kind of question lah. Macam kenapa semua PPR ni ada TV lah, macam I even don't have it back then lah. So macam mana dia orang boleh ada duit for this one? Ataupun another question is, they can spend on cigarettes, but they don't spend on insurance ataupun takaful. This is more needed for them actually for their future kan, but unfortunately they use for something else. So these are the question that we as a activist normally when we go to the PPR tu kita ada lah this kind of question, and when I read that, I read this book lah, macam oh I can understand now kenapa, because macam contoh TV, bukan semua pun yang beli, dia kata kan macam ada orang bagi, kan, betul kan, so yeah, so this is interesting lah for me, macam okay, selama ni kita cari soalan ni, macam you said, we need to ask the right question, then we gonna come up with the right answers lah. Okay.
To find the solution.
Yeah, exactly. So another question yang I rasa macam kita mungkin boleh ketengahkan sikit, yang macam dekat sana kan ada salah satu chapter yang cerita macam how the situation in the PPR, bila dia masuk dia ada smell dia punya pintu dia is semua in uniform, maksudnya sama je jenis pintu, and the situation in the house sama. So kalau macam we ever visit PPR pun, the similar issues kan yang we can see the pattern in Singapore and Malaysia. So kat sana ada rumah yang satu bilik, kat sini pun ada je rumah flat yang satu bilik, yang menyebabkan adalah timbul isu-isu sosial yang lain. So the next question is, from your sociology lens, do you find a lot more similarities on the inequality issues between Singapore and Malaysia when you read this book? And if there is similarities or differences, maybe you want to highlight a little bit more.
Okay, I think I tak berani lah nak komentar because study of inequality ni is something that is new to me, especially looking at Malaysian context, looking at macam urban poor. So I think what is memang nampak starkly different between Malaysia and Singapore is, number one, the society. In Singapore, we know it's very developed nation and we know it's a very small population. So the inequality tu kita nampak mungkin because everything is urban pun. But in Malaysia, we still have rural, we still have remote areas. So the inequality tu lagi diverse. So we are talking about accessibility, we are talking about livelihood experiences of a more diverse, unequal society in Malaysia. Contohnya the inequality between urban wealthy and urban poor is different, and at the same time the urban poor ni tak sama dengan rural poor, and sama juga is still different to macam very remote areas how they experience inequality, because access to contohnya basic things like toilet kan, and this is what I learned from my research of kemiskinan height lah, period poverty, and I was doing the research on period poverty first, but because it is hard to separate. It's hard to separate everything. And my research started dekat memang kawasan PPR. And through finding this book lah, I think this book really macam open my eyes as a researcher juga, to like consider doing more than my research. Number one, memanglah as a researcher, we want to make social change. So if I do research on period poverty, I want to help change that so that doesn't happen anymore. Tapi to also understand the context betul-betul of how things happen, so that it's not just about me meeting my respondents atau my participants and then interviewing them, collect data semua tu, and then I balik. But because I read this book, it made me really interested to immerse myself in the field. Maksudnya in studying PPR areas lah. So in, like you said lah, kita nampak some similarity in terms of the PPR punya issues, which the HDB issues. Tapi when we talk about inequality in Malaysia, we're not just looking at the urban poor. We also have other if we talk about social class, ada lagi other spectrum macam ataupun other groups that we have to look at lah. So with PPR area ni memang banyak similarities, and I think she shares some pictures juga of what are the signs, advertisements that you can find. The advertisements that yang ni is more about dia orang punya government efforts lah, like encouraging people not to macam ambil loans daripada Along and things like that lah, to to sort of encourage the people to be better, and then they talk about crime and things like that. So dekat situ maybe ada some similarities. For example, there are a lot of national efforts juga in Malaysia at PPR areas. Some PPR ada JKM offices, they have clinics sometimes, ada macam centers for learning. So they do have, maksudnya we do have government efforts, and the reason why we have PPR tu pun is a form of government effort lah. Maksudnya to elevate, to reduce homelessness, to ensure that people will have affordable housing. And things like that. And then in terms of the livelihood tu is different lah. Maksudnya kita, because we are a bigger macam population, bigger country tu, kita nampak differences. And I don't know, she doesn't talk so much about that in her book. Tapi from my experience of doing research ni, kita nampak in the local PPR scene, kita nampak the differences of each PPR. Maksudnya they're not all the same. The way that things happen in each PPR area tu pun tak sama. And the feel of different PPR areas pun different. Yang ni ada similarity to the work that Dr. Teo does lah. Maksudnya kita nampak contohnya some PPR are very well kept, bersih. So it doesn't fit the stereotype that dia akan kotor dan bau busuk contohnya. But there are some that will fit. Okay, some yang macam there will be certain descriptors yang memang sama. So we know that sebenarnya is different, and the way that they are run by their own communities is also different. Dekat situ lah I nampak some similarities ataupun some differences in terms of studying that. But my research is not ethnographic, so I don't intend to go as deeply as she has done lah with her work. But I would think that an ethnographic research like this that is published in our context would be very valuable, especially given the current circumstances kan. And with the potential of a rising population of urban poor, we definitely know how important it is lah. Kita boleh nampak the divide tu, and that has to do with inequality lah, the social divide. It's not so much about issue of poverty sahaja, but it's also how we talk about each other and how we think about each other kan, whether we are deserving or not. I remember macam after a while I got to know the people dekat PPR lah, punya area where I do my research, and then I remember one of the first instances where I met the people there when they started trusting me. Like it takes a long time to build trust actually, and then they a lot of things that they say they akan preface dulu macam to try to explain. Contohnya when we were starting to figure out ways to assist kan with the COVID ni, dia terus explain to me, doktor, dia terus explain. I didn't ask anything I tak cakap apa-apa pun. I genuinely ask, okay, how can we help kan? But dia terus explain, doktor, the reason why kita ada Astro ni bukan sebab saya bayar, rumah saya ada Astro, but I have never been to their house. Tapi dia terus explain, doktor, rumah saya ada Astro bukan sebab saya mampu, anak saya bagi. So dia terus explain all of the things like why I have certain privileges, and I think that macam really touched me lah, sebab you don't have to explain to me, you know, I mean, I'm not about to question you, tapi they were so ready to explain so that I don't question what they have in terms of trying to help. Padahal this person wasn't the one asking for assistance. This person was asking for assistance for their community. So dia cepat untuk explain supaya tak terjejas orang dia, you know, because they are already ready to respond to the stereotypes and stigmas of the society. And I think dalam buku ni on the chapter on differentiated deservedness tu, she talks about that lah, maksudnya of dignity. And I think she talks about issue of dignity too. We think it's very personal, we think it's very psychological kan, macam how we perceive stigma around them, but this is a sociological punya phenomena when we talk about stigma, sebab it's socially learned and socially propagated lah. Kita continue to propagate this idea and recreate this idea kan of contohnya if you are lazy, you're going to be poor, macam tu kan. And if you want to succeed, you tak boleh malas. Kalau you nak kaya, tak boleh malas. So it's as though saying that semua orang yang tak kaya tu adalah orang yang malas, ataupun semua orang yang kaya tu rajin. You know, it creates this idea. So if you are in a position where you are not rich, you akan rasa macam I'm not good enough, ataupun I've not done enough. kekurangan effort. And this is not just translated to the people who are experiencing it, it's also within the system. Maksudnya the support that is given, like you said lah, maksudnya NGO, people who work in public offices, contohnya to help them. They macam kita akan cepat nak tengok how much effort are they putting in into this, how deserving are they to get this help. And I've met with a lot of people who work with PPR people lah, and the first is always diorang ni memang macam ni, ada attitude problem. And it's very painful. So I think this book is like for everybody who works with it really needs to read that and understand that it's not just the attitude, you know, and this attitude stems from a place, and you thinking it is an attitude problem is because of your surrounding, and that continues to perpetuate the system. That's why she talks about inequality. Sebab inequality tu is us. It's not just them. You know what I mean? Kita yang berasa dia ada attitude problem, we are perpetuating that. So whenever we think about a solution, we are thinking about a solution about how to fix their attitude problem, how to fix their motivation, how to fix their laziness contohnya. Because we see the problem as that. So the point in which we start from tu dah problematic to start with. So we have to re-question. Sebab tu she said you have to disrupt the narrative, rethink balik whatever that we already know, take a step back and think balik, and to understand their lives would give us a better perspective of where to start, rather than kita nak cari problem yang kita rasa kita dah tahu, and then kita nak pick lah where the problem is.
Okay, I rasa this one is very very interesting because from my own work lah, masa dengan Brain for Future, this is my own NGO, so I invite middle class people and T20 people lah to become our interviewer. So I remember one of the guy masa tu when we had this interview, I tanya dia, okay, out of all the people that we interview, because the recipient is all B40. So one of his remark is, budak-budak ni tak ada ni lah, tak determine. Because I think that's very like macam I think because you are from M40 and T20, you being taught already about all those things, discipline, you kena ada a clear dreams, and you know your networks quite well. While compared to the B40 people, they don't have the networks. And sometimes I remember yang masa I pergi Sarawak back then, bila kita tanya dekat adik-adik yang umur 6 tahun kan, bukan 6 tahun, darjah 6, I tanya dia, you nak jadi apa nanti besar kan? Oh, I nak jadi polis, I nak jadi cikgu, I nak jadi bomber. Why? Because these are their surrounding. They are not exposed to a bigger world. So that's why benda tu jadi macam tu lah kan. So that's why I rasa it's not about them also, it's about us also, yang we need to also go to them and help them where we could. So this is why I rasa macam the divide in society need to be improved. And satu lagi benda yang I nak sentuh adalah pasal tadi yang macam you sebut tentang this is about system, and one of the part yang I rasa this is very true, when NGO yang nak tolong pun actually cause more problem in it, because they are working in a current setup, meaning they also have KPI, which it shouldn't be tackled that way. So probably you want to talk a little bit more on this.
I think not just NGO lah. Banyaklah parties yang, maksudnya different groups yang intention, I think intention tu bagus. Maksudnya memang nak membantulah to help, but we see lah a lot of the support that is given is very orang kata satu short term. Dia macam okay, let's bagi food, macam Ramadan contohnya kan, okay bagi food, and then macam bagi beras or something like that lah. It's always like that, and then you would take a picture to do it, and then you may never go there again. Maksudnya you pergi sekali je, you contact person, okay saya nak 60 orang miskin contohnya. I know it sounds really bad, but this is the reality. I'm looking for 60 poor people, okay ada tak? Okay ada. So the people contact person, okay cari 60 orang in this area, okay bagi a pack of food, beras semua, and then we take a picture and then we post it. Okay, it is painful actually to watch that. But sometimes because of the disconnect tu, we don't think much. Okay, it's bulan Ramadan, saya nak beramal, so saya akan buat ni. You know what I mean? But nobody actually knows anybody. And I think that's one of the things that she highlights juga lah, is for us to get to know each other as people. Maksudnya to connect at the human level. Not to just macam whenever I have to feel good about myself, I send help. Ataupun bila I nak kena achieve my KPI, I cepat-cepat cari you berapa orang ada, and then, you know, but you don't really understand what's happening on the ground. How many people take the initiative to actually do that? You know what I mean? Even people who work there. So it's not saying that everybody is bad lah. Maksudnya a lot of genuinely good-hearted people want to do that. But over time, because of these kind of incidences, we create a culture. And I don't think she talks about that lah, because this problem is unique to Malaysia. Sebab kita yang ada culture of membantu, NGOs very active, trying to help everybody kan. In Singapore it's more institutionalized macam tu. But we have this culture yang mana after a while, the people on the ground, the receivers tu, dah ada this idea that this is what's going to happen. There is an expectation. So they also don't expect you to care about them beyond that. So they already know the program. Okay, you datang, you bagi list nama, you datang, you ambil gambar, and then you gerak. You know what I mean? They don't expect that we will take more care into their lives. And that's a shame, because that is exactly the point lah. Maksudnya because we see the problem as dia tak cukup makan, kita bagi dia makan. And then dah, you know, that's it. So we see the problem as that rather than to try to understand what it is, what is really happening. So the approach tu is very touch and go punya approach rather than something that is long term. Sama juga macam a lot of the things that we do in trying to increase social mobility kan. We talk about, and I love that she brings this up. Contohnya we talk about education. For most of us, we think that education is the key to social mobility. Maksudnya to go daripada B40 to M40, we give our children a good education, and then kita akan, they will be better than us lah. So this is the chapter on children being better than us. And we focus on that. We focus on meritocracy macam tu. But she brings in a very popular sociology punya a sociologist lah, Pierre Bourdieu, a French sociologist, that talks about class, how class is propagated through certain capitals. Maksudnya kita ada different capitals, so it's not just about giving people education, dia boleh. Tapi when we talk about children kan, in Malaysian context, contohnya nak masuk sekolah, you expect that for middle class parents lah, you akan macam ajar anak you baca cepat-cepat sebab nak masuk sekolah kena pandai baca dengan pandai mengira. And you know that for a reason. There is a reason why you tahu, because of your class privilege. You know that I need to make sure that my kid boleh baca and boleh menulis and boleh kira. And if you are even more than that, you tahu, oh, I need to make sure that my kid is at the top of the class, sebab class divided according to my child's ability. So I need to make sure that my kid is better. So daripada dia kecil, like from 3 years old, you already sending them to preschool so that they have learned all of these skills, the ability to, macam dia cakap, the ability for a child to sit down. You know what I mean? That requires training, because human beings are not, you know, we're not born to know that I have to learn to sit down in a class and be quiet and listen to the teacher. A child's nature is to play. So if the child is not groomed to be able to do that, a child is unlikely to be able to do that. Sama juga, the same child that goes through the system yang mana maybe the mother had to work 2 jobs, right? So tak ada time nak ajar dia to read and write, and you know, had not considered that that was important, for example. So this child goes to school, tak pandai nak duduk diam. You know, I mean, it's a very normal kid lah. Maksudnya, it's a normal kid that wants to play around, that doesn't want to sit still, just wants to have fun. You know, trying to be silly, which is very normal for a human child to be able to do that. You know what I mean? So, and doesn't know how to read and write. So, it's categorized to, okay, this kid needs help. So after a while, dia akan need more help, kan? And then for a middle class parent, if your child needs help, you akan, okay, I need to get somebody to help. You know what I mean? Oh, I need to take some time off. Malam-malam, mama ajar this for you so that you are not going to be left behind. But they don't afford the same, you know, ability to do that. So you boleh nampak that progression of children growing up as the time goes, you know what I mean? And that really makes you think about it, whether it is true that it is education alone, the access to education, the quality of education, the support that comes with education is not really equal. Maksudnya, yes, maybe sekolah free ataupun is very minimum, but when the child goes to school, balik rumah tak tahu, tak faham cikgu ajar apa, which child is going to get more help? You know what I mean? And with the PDPR ni, we definitely can see lah the differences. Maksudnya access to an electronic device, access to internet, access to somebody to assist you. If it's a small child trying to learn online, they really need an assistant person here at the back untuk tengokkan dia dengar tak cikgu dia cakap apa, you know, somebody to check their progress. And not all parents can afford that, and we will see a big divide dekat situ in terms of siapa yang tercicir. And I think that's something that we really need to think about and how we can address that. I want to talk about my own experience lah, and I love I have a son. Before he was born, I macam baca lah banyak books about children, semua tu lah, trying to be like very intensive type A mom, which I'm not anymore lah, but I used to be that mom before. So I know how important reading is to children, and I started reading to him when he was a baby lah, and over the years he learned to love books so much, kan? And he was reading very early lah, Masya Allah. So, and then we have this narrative in our country yang macam, itulah orang kita tak suka membaca. You know what I mean? But what I learn as a parent is children learn to love to read. So I make a conscious effort to read to my child, to know that, oh, you have to start daripada kecil, you have to read to them, you have to create happy memories with them, buy them books that they like. I gain all of that from other resources. I didn't know that. I had to learn that. And then I have to allocate resources, satu, to afford to buy books. Number two, to allocate time to do it. Number three, to learn how to do it, because it's not just asking your kid, baca buku, and they're going to like to read. You know what I mean? So that is all of the capitals that I have as a mother to prepare my child. And to buy books that they like. Maksudnya I have to spend time and to understand my child, what they like. Okay, lepas tu nak pergi kat kedai buku, cari the books that they want, and then get it, you know what I mean? And she talks about that, like she said that her daughter masuk sekolah dah baca buku Harry Potter. But the person that she was interviewing tu, dia punya respondent tu, the daughter tak pandai baca lagi. And I can really relate to that, because when I do research, I can see the same thing. When I talk to these children, kan, that you said lah, dah besar nak jadi apa, kan, and I feel so macam the pain is so much. Ada one of the instances, so I remember lah, I was interviewing young girls, teenagers lah. And I'm all about like empowerment, you know, I'm all about like, you know, giving access and opportunities to girls to get education, you know, for employment and things like that lah. Lepas tu, I wanted to ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up, kan? Like, habis sekolah ni nak buat apa? What do you want to study? You know, I said lah, I'm a university lecturer. I can share with you about university courses. At least expecting that they would have the generic wants to be some occupation lah. Maksudnya ada generic one, macam like you say lah, nak jadi polis ke bomba ke. I'm just waiting for that. But I'm interviewing teenagers, female teenagers, nothing. I terkejut sangat. Tak ada, nothing. What are you going to, tak tahu. Maybe like jual macam jual SIM card macam tu dekat mall, and that's all they see, and that's all they think is possible. Like, and I said, why not? Because we go to a bad school. and it's not their choice, and they think they go to a bad school, you know what I mean? And you can see tau, the inequality increases as they grow older. Masa dia kecil, they don't go to a bad school because the primary school is not labelled a bad school. But at secondary school, they go to that school which is nearest to their house, and that school is labelled a bad school. So they think that I have no hope. There's nothing else that I can do with my life. Like I'm female, there's no option dah out there. So I go to a bad school, habis lah. Like habis sekolah, I have no more direction. If I have to work, I just work, and like kerja apa-apa, tak ada career pathway, tak ada the best, I just need to think about getting married lah after that, macam tu. So you can see tau how over the years it affects the children so much that it just continues to propagate that, and you cannot imagine like macam the social issues semua tu, and for us lah, we cannot imagine sebab we cannot see that because we're so divided, you know what I mean, in terms of where we live, and that is the narrative that is out there lah.
Okay, dia sentuh tentang social issue tadi kan. Ada satu benda yang menarik yang saya rasa dalam buku tu, yang diceritakan tentang kita duk fikir macam mana social issue ni berlaku. But if you look into how house tu being designed, this is where bila teenagers tu dah start umur belah-belah sikit, they want to have their own private space, but they don't have it. They also human, so they have conflict with their parents, their siblings, but for them they can hide their feelings. So the way they want to hide is they will go out of the house. Kalau orang yang mungkin ada proper house yang ada beberapa bilik kan, so their child can always have their own time and do their own things, or invite kawan-kawan datang rumah so they can have their own time with friends dekat dalam rumah. But for the poor yang dekat sana, I remember dalam buku tu, they can't do that. So this is where social issues datang. Ada anak lari rumah, parents bergaduh, dan affect emotion anak-anak because you need to bergaduh openly as compared to those yang probably you can hide issues kan because you bergaduh dekat dalam bilik kan. So maybe you want to tell a little bit more on this.
Like we have this luxury of space kan, and I think macam recently ada quote highlight on this issue, I don't know lah, it's like viral message about
pasal apa ni, rumah dari Berjaya.
Bukan. I was talking about social distancing and the pandemic tu lah. Maksudnya macam the privilege of having space to socially distance ourselves, contohnya kan. Just like that, like you said, growing up, nak main dekat mana, where do you go, what can you do, you know what I mean, ada playground ke tak, ada place to run around ke tak, like you said, kalau if you have a disagreement with your mom, where do you go to, these kind of things lah, that is we don't think about because it's we forget to think about that. We think I think what connects to that point from the book is for people who are poor, we think as long as they have enough. Kita macam focus on dia ada makan, at least they have shelter, that's what they deserve, the very basic which is shelter, food, macam tu, and maybe education, and the rest we don't want to think about it, ataupun it shouldn't be our responsibility to think about it, but we don't think about how that connects to our society. So and I think that's what she's trying to bring about juga, because we other people, maksudnya kita in sociology we have this term othering, kita tak nak address that as though we are related to that. We are not related to that issue. So that's your problem, ataupun that's the problem of the other, ataupun that is not connected to us, ataupun not connected to me. So when we do that, we don't address the problem in a just way. Macam tu lah. So she's trying to bring the problem back to us. Maksudnya we have to take, it is our problem, and because we are part of the same society, the social problems that happens there will have an impact on us too, and it is partially or potentially we are part of that system that continues to perpetuate that. So issue of social problems here, as usual lah, banyak lah kan, when we talk about teenagers especially kan, like you said, needing space. We talk about issues relating to macam out of wedlock birth kan, macam issues macam baby dumping. We talk about issues relating to drug abuse, and then macam rempit ke, all of this is the ability for young people to do activities. If we think about middle class and macam upper class children, their day is usually planned. Sama juga like she said lah, especially for Singaporeans, because they have to macam, I think they have a culture where they want their children to have a full day. But it's expensive lah, pergi tuition, lepas tu pergi enrichment class, belajar piano dan sebagainya. It's not free, you know what I mean? We have to pay for that. But that means that the child's day is full. Maksudnya anak-anak tu hari dia penuh. Tapi in a space where the child has no planned activity, very little supervision and access to activity that needs to be paid, dia tak ada. So, these are potential spaces for things to happen lah. And the things that they like to do, teenagers like to do, are always a little bit risky. You know what I mean? For macam M40, T20, kids boleh pergi rock climbing, wall climbing. It's risky, but it is safe. You know what I mean? It's risky, but it's under supervision. But it's expensive. Contohnya kan, to pergi main go-kart, contohnya ATV. All of these are risky behaviours ataupun activities, but it is cared for because it is paid. Tapi these young macam kids from the B40, when they do risky things, it's not safe. You know what I mean? Ataupun they don't have space to do risky things that are safe, and they might not have the direction or the kita panggil macam the culture to do that, to know that, oh, I can do risky things that are safe and these are the available options, and this is fun and this is interesting. The kind of setting that they are brought up to is dia nampak macam a bit older than them, older boys buat this, contohnya merokok ke, and that's what they understand, rather than macam young kids yang tahu macam, oh, I boleh belajar rock climbing kan, macam tu lah. So that perpetuation to the reproduction of that too happens, and it's hard for them. Sama juga macam it's hard for us to understand why they would do that. Sama juga macam for them, they would not have thought about, tak terfikir pun boleh pergi rock climbing, contohnya kan. And it's not also very accessible juga. So for us to say, kenapa dia tak pergi rock climbing ke, kenapa dia tak pergi baca buku ke, kenapa dia tak pergi, it's just because we can think about that because we are raised in this situation, ataupun this is our context, rather than, the difference in their context tu lah.
So relate to that juga lah. I rasa satu lagi yang macam one thing that we can't think of their problem is how they themselves is not emotionally developed well. Macam kita selalu kata macam kenapa kadang-kadang masalah perceraian ke, masalah kemiskinan ke, ataupun masalah emosi ni ataupun mental health ni kadang-kadang banyak berlaku di kalangan B40 ataupun those yang dah transmit lah dah berpindah daripada B40 ke M40. Bagi salah satu part adalah yang macam bila I baca banyak sikit, I rasa because benda-benda ni tak diajar dulu. Macam kalau those yang dibesarkan dalam keluarga yang tersusun ataupun yang baik, biasanya dia akan diajarkan untuk menguruskan emosi kan. Tapi diorang ni mak bapak tak sempat nak tengok macam mana nak uruskan, macam mana nak express emosi, macam mana nak disagree dengan people. Because kalau those yang in well family, normally dia diajar, okay, kalau you nak disagree, this is the way. But those in the B40, it's up to you. Dan dia belajar biasanya daripada kawan-kawan lah kan. So I find this very interesting lah.
And time to disagree, you know what I mean? It takes time in your day to like, okay, this is how we disagree, let's have a conversation about this. Time is precious, you know what I mean? If I spend time, if I have 5 kids, I need to teach each child, this is how you disagree. It takes time to emotionally engage, every participant ataupun every family member, and to educate satu-satu. That is a resource, time to get. And I think that's yang when she talk about work-life balance too, the time to be able to do things with your family, the time to spend, maksudnya to put your kid to bed, untuk acknowledge each child. So I think benda-benda macam tu is something we don't consider juga. Satu, the understanding of emotional health kan, and then the knowledge and the know-how as a parent to do that. You know, for some people, it's something that they have inherited. So dia memang dah tahu dah, oh, this is how I talk to children. Kalau I nak cakap dengan children, I kena tunduk, go down to their level. For some parents, they don't know this. So they have to learn this. So it's something new and something that you need to unlearn daripada your own upbringing. And then you need time to do that. If you're rushing, you tahu how hard it is for you to, okay, I just need to manage my child's emotions sekejap and then set that out. You need time, and that's so I rasa macam things like that lah, we don't consider, we don't think much. Sama juga macam work from home kan. Kalau M40 work from home, sibuk-sibuk pun, susah-susah pun, you boleh grab food kan. Ataupun kalau you tak grab food, you boleh cakap, I buy grocery seminggu sekali. Because you have enough money to buy food seminggu sekali, you know what I mean? It is not everybody has this amount of resources to afford untuk beli barang pasar untuk seminggu. You know what I mean? So those kind of things that we don't think about. And when you don't buy food seminggu sekali, you need to go every day. And you don't buy food dekat tempat yang tak ada orang. You need to have a queue, which is a long queue. So that takes you the time of your day, and people don't generally treat you nicely in the same way. Contoh you pergi a big grocer kan, you macam grocer mahal, everybody's so nice to you. Cuba you pergi in another space where it's just B40 people, generally people are not going to be like so caring about your emotion. Probably tak ada orang pun tanya, hi, how are you, how's your morning kan, untuk you nak beli barang pasar. Probably people are shouting at each other. So the experience of life too is very different. So in the same time, you punya ability to take the time and to know how to manage emotion and the baggage yang I think dia tak touch on this, but I've read other work on inequality that talks about the microaggression that people experience. Maksudnya that every day yang you kena experience microaggressions tu lah. I think in her book she talks about dignity, the lack of dignity. You akan perasan bila people don't treat you nicely. Generally you tak perasan until somebody treats you badly, baru you perasan. But imagine having many experience of microaggressions macam tu in a day. You nak manage your own emotion as a parent is already a challenge, and then you nak help, you know, your child would be another a big hurdle, which is part and parcel of your everyday life. Bukan macam oh, this happens suddenly ada orang marah. No, it's all the time.
Yang sebut tentang pasal how treat people nicely tu, I remember another part yang dalam buku ni, I rasa macam I tak pernah pun terfikir selama ni tentang macam mana Dr. Teo puji a mom, and they are so proud about it kan, yang macam for us it's a small things saying that you are a good mom, you done well for your family, but that one brings smile like macam no tomorrow dah for them kan. So this one I pun rasa macam we need to be a little bit more kind to people, so appreciate them and say what we're supposed to say lah kan.
She talks about conditional dignity. Maksudnya macam kita, we are only kind and nice to people because of certain conditions rather than for being human. Why can't we just be nice to people for being human? Kenapa only when you know that I am contohnya I'm Dr. Fatimah, then you macam Dr. Fatimah, like you treat me nicely, but if you just see me randomly as a female, young female, you tak treat me nicely contohnya. It is conditional. Maksudnya kita punya kindness to each other is conditional on certain values. Question.
Ada question. So doctor, in what way does the pandemic broaden the class divide? Will it impact the future generation in like 10 years?
I think in a lot of ways lah, that I'm seeing lah. I've not made a real assessment on this, tapi I can already notice a lot of things lah. Number one, macam kita cakap tadi, is education, access to education, and how much effort are we willing to put to reduce that divide. Maksudnya in the last year and 2 months ni, children yang tercicir because they cannot access online education. Tu satu. Number two is tercicir juga, not just because they cannot afford online education, but because of the economic impact on their family. Some children, especially older children, contohnya macam teenagers, okay, and older might have to take on the breadwinning role. Maksudnya they now have to take on role outside of education untuk kerja because of what has happened to their family. So we know that that's going to happen. And then of course the impact that it will have on people's general livelihood ni memang akan ada lah. And I think a lot of this is not my area juga lah. A lot of economists also have talked about this in terms of the growing number of population of the B40. Potentially we're looking at a B50 in the next year or two, and then we know that, you know, how that's going to be, what that is going to look like. So I think it definitely starts with education, and then we can also look at issues relating to macam gender. You know how when you work from home, you realize how much care work is required in, you know, managing work from home, and contohnya managing housework, your work from home work, and then if you have children, also managing that. And then orang panggil the soup that is we're all in. Maksudnya if you are a family of 10 people ataupun the 5 people, the dynamic of everybody being in the same space and the emotional work it takes to mediate that, you know, in our society most of the time it's women doing that work, maksudnya ensuring there is peace, and you know, everybody's on good terms with everybody so that we can all stay together nicely. Those kind of things will have an impact in terms of who it works, who it affects lah. So we can definitely nampak benda-benda macam tu. Tapi kalau just focusing on class, I think there will we will have to look at how we move from this situation. What kind of efforts are being put in? Kalau if we're just doing patchwork, it's hard lah. It's hard to see macam real improvements. We will see bigger divides lah. Benda tu dia macam kecil-kecil, nampak sikit, tapi over time it will be a lot more, you know what I mean? Yeah, the kind of debt that people might put themselves in. Yeah, so those kind of things lah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Fatimah. I think that's the only questions from the audience. So any last word, Dr. Fatimah? Because I think we have covered almost everything in the book. I rasa somehow.
I wrote some notes juga. Let's see. I think we did cover a lot of things about the book. Yeah. How we respond to it. Yeah, I think it's very I macam jual buku ni lah kan, tapi sebenarnya tak dapat duit pun. But there are weaknesses in the book, and I think if we are very focused on certain issues, maybe it's not relatable. So it's not for us to use the book for the Malaysian context, but the book gives us macam an outlook, a different outlook, I suppose. And as a sociologist, I sangat appreciate her book because it is accessible. Most of the time, it's very hard for me to explain what sociology is to the general public, because in Malaysia especially, people don't really understand sociology lah. They tak tahu. But I think, and it's hard to find corpus yang accessible to all and relate to Malaysian, ataupun it sounds similar lah, maksudnya something yang kita boleh faham, because a lot of the other sociology books mungkin relate to issue of contohnya race macam tu kan, in our context religion, race macam tu, ataupun gender lah, banyak resources on gender, but this is on class and inequality. So I rasa yeah, it is very, very interesting. And it's also not very expensive, tapi tadi Iman says dah tak ada dah. The book, I got the book from Kino and it's 38 ringgit. So macam I was saying just now lah, I was so happy that I got it sebab buku dia I think on the scale of books sangat affordable. Macam novel pun lagi mahal kot daripada buku ni. I got mine from Kinokuniya, tapi Mak saya dah habis, but I would think that maybe if everybody just keeps on asking, they will find that there is a demand to get the book. Lagi satu Gerak Budaya, I think was offering it juga, tapi also out of stock. But I hope that if everybody keeps asking, it will be back lah. Yeah. Okay.
Kat sini ada orang bagi tahu boleh Coach yang nice boleh beli di website Gerak Budaya ataupun Shopee. Tapi saya ingatlah sebelum puasa hari tu saya memang cari kat Gerak Budaya memang tak ada. Saya cari dekat kedai buku Ilham pun tak ada, dekat Kino pun tak ada, kan. So yang ada masa tu kena beli dekat Singapore je lah. Tapi I rasa probably now dah lepas raya ni mungkin dah ada kot.
Mungkin dah masuk.
Very cheap actually, and very affordable. Okay. I rasa ada satu part yang I lupa. Dr. Fatimah actually working on some initiative in the PPR. Maybe you want to share a little bit on the initiative.
Okay, so I was telling the story tadi pasal reading kan, and then apa ni, I tanya-tanya juga lah because I'm interested in reading. So I was after hari tu, I just want to tell my story. Tak tahu lah, I don't dengar how the initiative started. I don't know if anybody was involved in this lah. Maybe sebab ni macam geng-geng buku, maybe you all did this too. During the MCO tu, there was this like a chain mail book initiative. Like you give somebody a book, macam you pass forward a book and then you'll get books sent to you. So saja-saja I participated in that. And then I got so many books. I tak tahu pun, I didn't expect to get any book lah. Terus I just wanted to try it out and I got like berbelas buku, which is a lot lah. Macam to think that people would just give away books to other people, you know what I mean? And I thought that wow, and after a while I felt undeserving lah. Macam who am I to suddenly get books from strangers lah? I felt bad even lepas tu. But then I thought, if people are so kind to give a book to a stranger who is me, who actually, alhamdulillah boleh lah beli buku, bukanlah I can buy all the books that I want, but I can buy books, you know, like a few a month macam tu kan. That means there are many people out there who would be willing to give books to other people. So there is this initiative that I read about, macam Pelangi library or something. There's this Indonesian lady started a library in the small islands in Indonesia for the underprivileged children. And then at first I thought macam mana nak buat ni, and then I said if they are willing to give me books, they would be probably willing to give children books too. So I spoke to my friend, Dr. Madiha from UIA. She's a literature punya lecturer, and then she agreed to like, okay, let's try this. But we don't just want to give books. So like I said just now, the culture of reading is not just about giving people books. You know what I mean? To encourage children to read, you need to build memories, like good memories of books. And you need to instill that idea that dalam book tu there is going to be an adventure. You know what I mean? So you ada attachment to that. It's not that there's going to be an angry adult telling you, read now, salah baca ni, and then like macam jentik you or something. You just want them to love books. So we didn't want to just give away books because then it would be something that they don't want, because there's the value to it's not seen. So we want to create that experience. So we started the initiative Kiriman Si Kancil. Please follow us on Instagram. Okay. So unfortunately we started during the MCO tu lah. So alhamdulillah, my assumption was right. Alhamdulillah, we've managed to gather quite a number of books. Alhamdulillah, we started with one PPR tu lah. So dia punya bookshelf sudah penuh. So like I said just now, in our PPR areas, we have a midst tau. Dia macam like a center where usually dia ada space for children in the PPR to learn. Dia akan ada resources macam tu lah. Sometimes places to print and photocopy things. So dia ada bookshelf, tapi bookshelf dia kosong. So because I visited the PPR, I tahu PPR tu macam dia punya means tu cantik. Like sayang lah tak ada buku. So alhamdulillah, we've managed to fill almost full lah that bookshelf. So hopefully we can move to other PPR areas. Tapi what we actually really want to do is to bring that experience. Maksudnya for us to come and have a reading time Maksudnya on a weekend kita ada reading time where we bring the community in and then bring the children in. So Kiriman Si Kancil is an initiative for children. So we would like to get books for children. So I would really like it if people bagi buku that is close to them. Maksudnya growing up, people who are readers ni are usually lucky because someone introduced them to reading. So we have found a book that really macam switch on that dreamer in us. So if you have a book that you really like as a child, ataupun if you are a parent and you ada baca satu buku that's so special for you and your kid, that would be the kind of books that we want. Books that you know have a special place. Bukan books yang macam to encourage children to read macam ada phonics ke. No, just books that are happy books that will build good memories. Yeah, so hopefully that, and then we really hope that post MCO we can start the activity lah with the children.
So siapa yang nak tahu lebih lanjut boleh follow IG Kiriman Si Kancil, dan mungkin nanti kalau dah ada aktiviti untuk bacakan buku untuk student, kita boleh create memory for them. Please participate. This is a very good initiative, kan? Okay, so as a conclusion for today's session, I think I have 4 things I learned from the sessions. First is we need to reconsider and rethinking our perspective and even our questions. Okay, so once we reconsider our perspective, obviously our question will differ, and inshallah we're going to able to find different solution for it. Second is very important, be human, because that's the only way to move forward. Kalau kita tengok a few videos tentang inequality in other countries, the reason why ada suicide semua kerana manusia hidup secara sendiri, being too individualistic. So we need to create a society where we really connect to each other, to support each other. The social magnet need to be more strong lah as compared to what we experience today. I think now pun kita dah boleh rasa dah sebenarnya the social magnet is very loose kan, ataupun macam dah almost tak ada, but we need to bring that back. Third is we are part of the problem, so we need to act on this together, and we need to create experience for others as much as we create that experience for our loved one. So macam tadi kan Dr. Fatimah sentuh pasal buku tu, let's try that, let's follow the Kiriman Si Kancil and do as small as possible effort that we can to change the society, because I believe this small effort will actually somehow bring to a bigger things in the future. It's just that we need to act on it and do together. Thank you so much everyone. For watching today's sessions. Alhamdulillah we end. InsyaAllah kita akan berjumpa minggu depan dalam sesi yang lain bersama dengan moderator yang lain insyaAllah. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good night.